So your assignment is to take notes, but then the question you might have is, what is the expected notes? Don't just write down everything that you read. Don't turn yourself into a duplicating machine, but you need to read in chunks. Read whole sections at a time, then go back and remember the main ideas, maybe even without flipping back to the earlier pages. And then if you need to go back, then go back and refresh your memory. But if you just start writing as you go, you'll end up with 20 pages of notes on 24 pages of reading, and you'll just be writing down, you know, most were English speaking. I mean, do you need to write down most were English speaking when you get to this? The people that come from the old world. So you'll read through, and by the way, read the pages in color. People sometimes, those students will think, oh, it's in color. The textbook person thinks, oh, it's extra special. And the student goes, oh, it's not on a white page. I don't need to read it. So you read through. Certainly pay attention to the things that are in bold, but don't just focus on those. I would say in this chapter, probably the earlier part of the chapter will, I hope, is familiar. I hope you studied about explorers when you were in world history in elementary school. This story, the Inca and the Aztecs, the Incas and Aztecs certainly come into play here. And so you read, look at the pictures, the graphics, make sure you take notes. And then when I say take notes, let me find something. So let's say you see a term that you want to write down. Don't just write the term down without the definition or the explanation of what it means random. Again, I think it's up through Columbus. It's going to feel fairly familiar. But let's say you don't know about the Columbian Exchange. This is a good example. You don't really know what that is. And then you read the summary of the Columbian Exchange. And underline it, by the way, is the issue is, do we owe everything to Columbus, or where's our allegiance? And is America built by the Americans that were here, Native Americans, or is it all the good stuff was imported? And this is the underlying part of this as we talk about who Columbus is and his relations with natives. So you wouldn't write down, obviously, in your notes, Columbian Exchange. Oh, I've taken notes, but what is the Columbian Exchange? The key ideas and explanation. Look at the chart. It'll help you visualize what it is so you can lock into your mind the old world, the new world in Africa. This has been called triangular trade. It's a different way of explaining the same kind of thing. So as you go through, write down the key events. Read first. The biggest thing is comprehension, so you don't turn this into busy work. You don't just go through and copy stuff and you are mindlessly, I don't know, watching TV in the background and you can be a human duplicating machine, but read in chunks for comprehension, then write down those key things that you remember. Now, there is another thing that you can do. Let me show you. This might be a way that you'll want to go. On my main page of Schoology, under main course textbook, you can click here, the pageant guides. And for those of you who are familiar with Cornell notes, they give guided structure and a series of questions. And so it still has to be in your own handwriting, but if you want something a little bit more specific, this is a really good resource. So you read in chunks, and then you go back and you look at the questions. You say, oh, I remember that. And you write that in notes on the side. And then maybe you don't remember it. You put a little star next to it or something. You go back and you look at it and see that you do remember it. So for each of the chapters in American Pageant, there are Cornell notes, and so there are 82 on the first one. Again, some of them are key encomienda system, these things. Some of them you might say, well, that's familiar. I don't need to include it in my notes, but this could give you a good structure. And that is back in the folder that's up here. So if you go into main course textbook, the guides are in there along with the textbook chapters themselves.